I'm actually glad I met you in the cohort that we're in.
Agreed.
I thought it was, I don't know, I saw everyone on the call. Maybe I was thinking, I'll just get my money and just go.
Yeah.
But you gave me a shout out, but you put me on the fire.
How though? I mean,
You did, because everyone's like, oh, you do video and.
well, that was because I didn't know you were you before I saw it.
That's
Before
true.
I heard the name and I was like, I felt like I heard your name somewhere before. And then I went on Instagram. I was like, oh, that's you.
That's me.
Yeah,
That's
see.
me.
But that's a good thing though, because you don't want to miss the opportunity.
No, no, I don't. And that's why I'm here.
Right.
You, when I saw this place in Windsor, it was getting built up. I didn't know what was happening.
Right.
Now that I'm in and I see it, the sky's the limit. You know, I see it. I see a lot of potential.
Mm-hmm.
But before we even get into that,
Mm-hmm.
we need to know how you got here.
Got here in terms of
How
the
do we?
space. Got here in terms of got here how? Like,
That's
what do
true.
you?
That's
I feel
valid.
like that's a
That's a
good.
valid
I
question.
get asked that question a lot, so it's like, what do you mean in terms of what part of it, what phase of it?
Well, all right. Let me ask you this: if you had to explain, if you had to introduce yourself,
Mm-hmm.
how would you do that
Who am I introducing myself to?
to the world?
To the world. That's a lot of. That's a.
Like, if I just met you for the first time, I walked in, I said, "Hey, hi, I'm Anthony,"
I mean, I'll say my name. My name is Kyesha.
and I'd be like, "What do you do?"
I'm a NICU nurse and entrepreneur. Are you walking into the space?
Yeah, I'm walking
Oh,
into
you're
the
walking
space.
into the
Yeah.
space. Oh, that's like my typical tour. I mean, I don't necessarily tell people that I'm a nurse initially. I most of the time I never do.
Why?
Um, because that's not what I'm selling at the moment. Ideally, when someone walks into the space, there's a reason why they came into the space.
Yeah.
So I don't talk about myself. I talk about the space, and then I allow them to tell me why they entered the space. And then when we connect, then I can share my story. And I think that's what I did with you when you came. I
That's
don't
true.
necessarily tell you, oh, I'm the owner, my name is Kyesha. At the end, I always get asked, you're the owner? Or why didn't you say that? But it's like, that's not why you were here.
Mm. And you think that's like the most effective approach?
People like to talk about themselves.
True.
So I feel like if I allow you to talk about yourself versus, because I feel like if you walk into a space, right?
Yeah.
If you come in and I just keep talking about myself, telling you how I did this, how I created it, what you can do, what can get done, versus how'd you hear about us? Why are you here? What brought you here? What's your vision? What do you want to do? Like, what approach would make you be like, okay, I feel like I'm motivated now. Let me come back, or let me take that in and then come back.
That's smart. That's smart. And I kind of understand that
Mm-hmm.
because I give people a platform to talk because people like to talk about
Right.
themselves.
See?
Yeah.
All right.
But I was thinking, nah, you got me with the story after, so that is effective. But I do want to talk about you being a nurse,
All right.
right? That's kind of how this whole thing came about, kind of dealing with your profession.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes back to the essence of like why I'm even doing interviews.
Right.
Um, and I respect people in your profession. Um, but I do want to know more about it. Like, how's the everyday life being a NICU nurse?
Mm, there's a lot to it. There's a lot of layers to it. I love what I do. I genuinely love what I do every day that I go to work. However, there's a lot of pieces to it in terms of when we talk about mental health, physical health, um, just kind of dealing with the parents, but it's rewarding.
Mm.
And like for me, everything I do it to serve people. Like I'm an empath. Like I just care for people regardless of any way I take it. So whatever I do, I have to fully be into it. Um, but it's never the same day.
Was that something you always wanted to do, or like this
A
kind of came?
NICU nurse or a nurse?
The profession, yeah, the
I
nurse.
mean, so I was born in Jamaica.
Hmm.
I grew up with my grandmother, and I came to America when my mom brought me up here, and like they were both helping people, like caring people. Like my grandmother, for instance, she probably took the entire, what do you call it, parish, like kids. Like I thought they were my family.
Right.
They're not my like now I'm finding out like, oh, that's not my cousin.
Wow.
So that was just her heart. For my mom now, like for me, my mom is like my rock, like my person.
Right.
She does home health care for just old people. And then I started working with her probably at like 15. I'm not a fan of old people. I mean, that's where I got a lot of my experiences from, like bedside manner.
Right.
And I worked in a daycare, so I always knew I wanted to be a nurse. I'm the first person to go to college, so in terms of even understanding how to get there, I had to do a lot of research. Like I knew I wanted to be a nurse and I wanted to work with children.
Right.
But neonates, pediatric, two different things. Um, I just fell into it. It was an opportunity.
Okay, so then you grew to love it.
Yes, because I had to learn it. I did not know like when you graduate from school, like you know the basic nursing needs, what you need to do, your ABCs. But when I started in the NICU, I was like a student again. Like I didn't know like that. Like those babies are not full term babies.
Wow.
So I was completely learning again. I was scared. Like these babies are like this tiny.
I know, and that was like one of my fears from when my son was born. I just didn't.
No, it's
I just
not.
didn't want to. I don't want to say it. You know what I mean? Like I just didn't want to go through that. Like I've seen. You know, my godbrother was he was born premature. Like I saw a picture. He's like, he literally you could hold him.
Yeah. I use one hand with my babies.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but I feel like that's most parents' fear is even like touching the kids half of the time, and we have to like I say force, but you really have to be like just put your hands and touch baby, like just do it. But then they get chunky.
Right. So, how do you guys get them chunk? Like, how does it?
How do you get them chunky?
Yeah.
I think that's the term. I just like to call kids
but
chunky.
yeah, how? Like, what's the process? And like,
there's not a one set at all because you can be a 22 weeker, you can be a 35 weeker, and their journey looks completely different. So there's a multitude of milestones that the babies have to reach. But again, the journey is different because a premature child, like they're born premature, but there's a reason why.
Yeah.
Right. So the reason behind that makes a huge difference, whether it's like respiratory, cardiac. So there's always a different focus.
Right.
So ideally, like the chunky part doesn't even come to play once we make sure the babies are stable in terms of like getting fluids, their respiratory stabilized, their temperature is stabilized. When they get to the point where they could be like breastfed or bottle fed, that's when the chunkiness comes in because that's when we feed them, when we make sure they're gaining weight. But ideally, that's like it depends. Like a 22 weeker and a 36 weeker is like even a 22 weeker and a 28 weeker, they're completely two different babies.
Like, what's like the most like I don't want to call it I could call it a miracle, but like give me a situation where you're like, this was impossible. I didn't think this baby would make it type of thing. Like
I just had that experience. I mean, there's a lot. There was a lot. I've had 22 weekers, but I want to say my most recent. I gotta be careful to make sure I don't say the wrong thing. I know.
They're
like, you're fired.
Yeah, right. Hey, I don't want that to happen.
Fired.
Listen.
I think I can. Let's see. Let me make sure. But it happened to me recently, and one of the things with me, and this is, when you do like an interview or they ask you those questions like, what's your weakness and what's your strength?
Yeah.
My weakness is always caring too much. Because I like working with the youth. I like working with kids. An adult, I'm like, oh, you kind of figure it out. But with kids, it's like it pulls at my heartstrings, and I can get frustrated more.
Right.
So that's always my weakness. It's still my weakness till this day.
That's not
like knowing you're like slow down, like you can't do everything in a sense.
Yeah.
But I did experience that recently, to where it's like, to me, it's a miracle for the family and even for the baby. Like, how he came into the world was tragic.
Yeah.
The process of what his family had to go through is like heartbreaking. I remember I worked 5 days in a row. This is what I was talking about on the call.
Yeah.
I worked 5 days in a row and I was mentally exhausted And I was mentally exhausted only because I was like, I didn't really think baby was gonna make it.
Wow.
You know, like I didn't think it was just so many different pieces to it, and I was just like, no one should have to go through this. And my job humbles me.
Mm.
That's another thing, especially like being an entrepreneur. I'm like, okay, complaining about this, or just life in general. You're complaining about it, and I go to work, and I'm like, all right, shut up,
Wow.
basically. But it's just to see a baby that's on respiratory support, like whether that's like nasal cannula, intubated, a baby that's not like a full term child.
Yeah.
You know, like making noise, crying, moving, mom's not able to kangaroo, dad's not able to hold. They haven't eaten for weeks, for months, and then they become this like baby.
Wow.
Like they go from looking like, I don't want to say it, but like tiny. They don't look like people.
Yeah.
You know, they don't look
No,
like
seriously.
people. But honestly, like premature babies, like the bigger they get, and they get so bigger and chunkier quickly.
Mm.
Like they get chunky very quickly, and then they just start to look like babies. Like you want to hold them, but before it's like you can't. And ideally, when like if we have a 22-weeker, 23-weeker, we barely touch them
Wow.
because it's a lot. Like we're talking right now, and it's
Yeah.
probably will be completely too loud. Like you remember the NICU, it's quiet.
Yeah.
I mean
I've
quiet
yeah.
enough versus like all of the screaming equipment.
How to explain to me what you see with like the parents? You know what I mean? Like the emotions that they're, that they're going through. Like,
There's a lot. I feel like there's a lot, and every parent is different because
Right.
again, you can't necessarily prepare for it. I mean, sometimes they can let you know, like when you have a twin birth, like it's ideal, like you may end up in the NICU, or you have moms who are repeat C-section, or something happens, but you can't prepare for it emotionally or
Right.
mentally because you have some parents where you're just having a normal day and it happened, and they end up there.
Wow.
And like when we talk about the moms, for instance, if they don't see their child, like imagine, I mean, can't imagine, but
No,
like
yeah, no, actually.
you have birth, like you just gave birth to your child and you don't know where your child is.
No, I can't imagine that.
Right. So it's
Nope.
just one of those things of that, like that's a scenario where it can be a stat, where the baby has to come and then something happens to mom and mom's out of it and baby's in the NICU.
Yeah.
Right. And then you wake up, the baby's not inside of you and you don't have the baby.
Mm.
There's no like time to where you can really even get to them to say, hey, baby's okay, because you're panicking. Or even the first time you get to see your child, because ideally birth is very like, that's a whole job within itself, right?
Right.
So to even get up and walk to the NICU and get to the NICU, like you have to wait until you can do that. So there's time being passed by.
That's traumatic,
It is right. So
That's
if
traumatic.
even before they get there, there's already trauma, and then it's like you don't know. There's also, why did they get there? Why is baby premature? Like, why did this happen? And then it's like an emotional roller coaster.
Yeah.
It's an emotional roller coaster every single day.
Nah, man. When my son was born, I was right there. I looked at him. He looked at me. We we looked at each other. It was the coolest thing.
Yeah.
And I like my doula held my son before me, so I was able to even just watch.
Yeah.
That was, I couldn't even imagine you telling me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know I don't know where he is.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. No, it's a lot. Or I've seen like, I always find this cute though, but where mom can't get to the NICU, so dad comes, and then dad's like freaking out because he's like freaking out. I remember one dad, he asked me, he was like, do you think he has enough hair? And I was
What?
But like it was just like, it was like younger parents,
Yeah.
but I didn't think so, first baby, but it was just so funny to me because I was like, ask anything you would like, like I can orient, because ideally what we do is orient them to the unit, show them the baby, show them what we're doing, but orient them to the unit. Like, this is why the baby has this in his throat or his nose, or this is this beeping noise, or this is what we're doing to monitoring him. No parents hear that. You have to say that, like, when they come back and settle, probably like the third time, explain it again. But no one is listening. They're looking at their child like in this box. But yeah, that was like a funny question. He was like, I don't know what to ask. I'm sorry.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I get it.
was like, it's okay. I was like, it's fine. I was like,
I
it's
get
okay.
it.
But
Now, I don't know how I don't want to get you in trouble.
yeah, don't get me in trouble.
'Cause
But all right, I can.
We did talk about this on the call.
Yeah, what's
Well,
that?
you talked about it
What?
at class. The way people are treated
Mhm.
differently.
Mhm.
Do you see that often? Is it sometimes or
It's every day.
every day?
It's every day. Nurses are treated differently. Parents are treated differently. Babies are treated differently. And it's just healthcare. I mean, it's not only healthcare, but like in my situation, like healthcare is very brutal.
Right.
And I feel like we're in trouble, like terrible trouble. And then when we're talking about the black and brown community, like if we don't get educated, it's going to be a problem. It is a problem. That's why we're dying, especially when we're talking about maternal health. But people are treated differently. It's like that implicit bias. It's just like, oh, you see a black man, you see a black family, all of a sudden they just have this entire picture of how it's going to go. They approach the situation differently, they educate differently, or they don't educate because they assume that we don't want to know, right? Or they assume that we're angry. And I still don't understand that. I've heard that word so many times.
Really?
Like, even recently, I can't even remember the situation, but the response was just like, yeah, she was agitated. She was mad. I was like, I didn't see no agitation. She was questioning you.
Right.
She asked you a question. Is that not something to do? And that was a nurse. She was a black nurse. There was another situation to where at this moment I was only shadowing, and in the NICU we take like breastfeeding and lactation seriously. So we were talking to a mom about lactation, and like that within itself, breastfeeding is very stressful for some mom. Like it's not an easy task to do. So we were having that conversation with her, and she was just frustrated, but she was not rude. She was respectful. Like she articulated her words clearly, and she voiced her concern. We went another way, and they were talking about the situation. Like, yeah, she was upset, and I couldn't even see. Like, she was saying she had something, present there. And she was like, I couldn't even see it because her skin was dark. I was like, if she was dark, then what am I?
Oh.
Like she was like this color.
Wow.
I was just so confused. She was Latina.
Yeah.
So it's just things like that to where it's just like, how do you, and then they looked at me first before saying it. And I was just like, don't.
That's the weirdest thing when they're giving you that eye contact, like, okay, I'm going to say this.
They're so fearful of saying the word black. It even happened the other day when they were trying to explain who, she had a low bun and a ponytail.
Yeah,
and looks over, and she's black.
Yep, that's the last.
And I'm just like, I just don't, I'm like, there's probably one black nurse to 100, right? So just say black. Just say it. Because why are you hesitant of saying it? You have to.
The word black, to me, it's such a negative word here.
It is.
It's like.
It is. Like, people are fearful of people are just fearful of everything, but it's just like, I feel like if you are not being negative and you're being genuine,
just
say it. But half of the time they are being negative and they're not being genuine. So they scope out the one black female.
Okay. I get where you're going with this.
Yeah.
It really need, and you know what? I said this before. I thought a doula was pointless, right? Until you start breaking all this down, I couldn't even imagine my doula not being there.
It's a support system is very vital, and we don't see it, especially when you're going through that. Like having a child, the process of that is one thing, and it's just like the education, the support, someone who understands the system. Yeah. And that's the key, someone who understands the system. Like, for even me, if I have a child, if God puts that in the book, I don't want to be the nurse when I'm there. Like, I need someone there that's going to advocate for me. Like, I will not tell you I'm a NICU nurse. I will know how to advocate for myself because I know the system. But when you're going through that process and you're feeling that pain, you don't want to have to like rely on, oh, now I have to jump up and advocate for myself. Now I have to be present because I know that so many things will be missed because I'm a black woman.
Wow. See, there's so many layers to you.
What do you mean?
I mean, this right here in itself can be the whole episode, right? It could be, we could get cut right now. Wow, that was amazing. But like, what made you? So what made you get into this, owning this space?
Mm-hmm.
Like, was it an epiphany one day? Like you were working and
No,
you're like, you know
no.
what? We need a space or something. Like what was going through your brain?
So I'm big on ownership.
Okay.
I'm big on opportunities. And when I say opportunities, I mean be prepared for every opportunity. Right? So I always prepare for every possible thing that you want, obviously, because you're thinking about it. The opportunity of ownership presented itself. Was I ready? Absolutely not. I mean, I was prepared for it in
Right.
terms of, whatever investment. And for me, it's just like time. It's just you organizing. If you really want it, you get it
Right.
done. Um, my ideal outlook, right? I love healthcare. I love health and wellness. So I've always wanted a community center, but a community center where there's access, right? Like my biggest thing is access when we talk about health, because insurance is one thing. To be able to get a doula, to be able to have a support system,
Right.
to be able to, for instance, like if you're not a citizen and to get your blood work done, all of those things, like that's all access, and there's levels. There's so many levels to it and layers to it, to where I feel like even mental health, when we talk about that, there's not enough therapists. And we are all like, now we're like huge victims to mental health, especially when we're talking about after COVID. But having those pieces, like to have a community center, to have access to, you have to have ownership. You have to have power over, especially when we talk about healthcare, you have to have ownership over stuff you want to provide.
Right.
Right. Because under the umbrella of, let's call it corporate, you're not going to be able to provide the service you want. You're not going to be able to provide the top quality care that you want because you're working for somebody else.
Right. No control.
So no control. Exactly. Right. They control you. So ideally, like for me, this is a stepping stone, right? Because as Black and brown people, we need to have way more ownership over the stuff that we have, because we're able to maneuver and do more things, right? So now I can put whatever I want in the space.
Yeah.
So when we talk about entrepreneurship, and Black and brown professionals, health and wellness professionals in the community, there's not enough, right?
Damn, that's a lot to unpack.
What?
You was really. It's true. It's true, and I think there's a lot of stumbling blocks in the way. This is just my little hot take.
Go ahead.
What school did you go to? Did you go to school in Jamaica or here?
What kind of school? I mean, I went to school there and here. But I mean, like college, I went to University of St. Joseph.
Okay. I just feel like you had some schooling in Jamaica, right? I just feel like people from Jamaica they're smart. They're smart. That's how I feel. Like the school, I don't know what the schooling is down there. I hear it's great, but I just know when I work with people from Jamaica, I have Jamaican relatives, so I know personally, they are smart. And I'm not saying there's not people that are not smart, but I'm just saying the education down there is, at least from what I remember, my grandparents are big on education and stuff like that. So I feel like you have an advantage mentally.
That's what I was going to say. It's the mental. I mean, the schooling is different. When you talk about America's school system, that's a whole nother topic.
Right.
Like how they're teaching it, how they're presenting it to kids is completely different. Honestly, when I came out of high school, I didn't know nothing. I'm going to be completely honest with you. Like
my whole hot take.
Yeah, no, I didn't know. I mean, I loved science. I loved biology. So I zoned in and focused on that. But I'm talking about how to utilize.
Okay, you talking about high school as in here?
Yeah,
okay,
here.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So when we talk about the advantage, maybe like me born in Jamaica, like my family is from Jamaica, it's really the mindset.
It's the mindset.
It's the mindset.
Yeah.
It's like to go from what I was used to in Jamaica, like running barefoot, like the kind of houses where it's just like phones wasn't really a thing.
Right.
Like, everything was completely different from how I grew up, like my childhood, and then you shift to here, right? So my thing is just like, it's knowing where you came from, but also knowing where the people paved your way. And for me, it's like my grandmother and my mom, like the sacrifices she had to make for me to come here. So when it came to school and just me doing stuff, like if I said I'm going to do it, it's going to get done.
Right.
Like regardless, it's going to have to get done.
And that's what I think when you talk ownership, if you were born here, you really need to put that in someone's brain that was born here or their family was born here. And I'm not saying everybody because we talked, obviously, you know, Tulsa, we talked about that on the club. Most people know about that. And there was a lot of ownership there, and then boom, a whole city got destroyed. So I think people get frustrated with it, but like the relentlessness of others kind of just get you there. But how'd you come up with the name?
The collective space. So I had many. I wanted the word space, right? And my biggest thing is with the space, whatever that was going to be inside of it, it needed to be a safe space, right? And then in the Black and brown community, it's a lot of competition.
Oh,
right?
Can we discuss?
It's that? A lot. It's a lot of competition. It's not a lot of collaboration. It's not a lot of, hey, you have this knowledge, I have this space, let's come together. It's more so, oh, you have that knowledge and I have this space. I don't think I want you to come here because you might outshine me, kind of thing, right? So my biggest thing is collective. Like we have to come together. It's a safe space, and ideally that's for me. If I don't feel you can fit and be a part of the members that are in here and collaborate and you want to see everybody elevate, I don't think it will be a good fit.
That's fair. I think I could go. That's a touchy topic for me.
The competitiveness?
Yeah, man. Because like a lot of people, my thing is I'm big on paying homage to people, right? Just if you got an idea from someone or someone inspired you, just say it.
Give them the flowers.
Just give them, you know, you're not like, what's the term? I don't want to say anything bad.
What?
You're not. Can I say it?
Say what?
It's a bad term.
Well, I don't. What do you?
Would you mind if I say something kind of crazy?
I mean, go right ahead.
It's not DICK writing if you give a compliment. My God.
It's the bouncer for me.
Yeah, it's not. You're not writing nothing. Just say, yo, this dude or Kyesha, I like what you're doing.
That was
funny.
You
inspired me. You know how many people I tell, yo, man, you motivate. Oh,
I can't. Thanks. That's so funny. That was funny.
I'm sorry.
All right.
I'm sorry, Tycoon.
That was.
I'm sorry. I had to get that one off.
That was funny.
Yeah. So I love the name, and I guess what I want to ask you, how do you balance working and running this? Matter of fact, before we get into that, tell me, were there any stumbling blocks in you getting this space?
Absolutely. There's a lot, and it's a whole process too. I mean, starting a business, the process of starting a business, it's already something within itself, and that's kind of where it came up with a piece of the idea when we're talking about co-working spaces, right? Because co-working spaces, it's bringing people together in an environment where we all come together and work. For me, taking a different approach is providing that access, resource, education to people. Because you don't see a lot of co-working spaces with people that look like us.
Not at all.
Right. You don't see a lot of co-working spaces marketing to people like us. And I'm not saying you have to directly put us on your page, but if I don't feel comfortable walking into your space, then that says it all, right? Like you have to set the tone. Like, are you welcoming everybody, or are you only focusing on one kind of people? And that's completely fine. But I say that to say, I want to make an impact, like in the Black and brown community, because we lack education. I'm not talking about school and education. I'm talking about education of how to write a business plan.
That's true. You got
right.
Degrees,
right. You know, like the degree is one thing, but it's like, how do you execute what you have from your degree, right? So you're starting a business, but what are the steps? Like, it's not about the product. It's not about the service. It's not about what you're selling, but it's like, how are you going to execute it? We don't have, resources are there. I'm not saying there's not resources. They are there, but how accessible are they? Right? Are we bringing it within the community where it needs us? Because small businesses, Black and brown business makes up half. Like, I don't know the stats, but it's there. We're providing employment. We're providing services. So I wanted to make sure the education is there. right? The access is there, the space is there for people to utilize,
Yeah.
but giving them education as well.
Now, you're giving people hope by, I hate the word hope, by the way.
Why?
Because it's like, hope is like, I like to just execute. I don't like to hope for nothing. I'm just going to tell myself it's going to get done. And if not, I just die. I'm just dead.
All right.
I know I'm extreme.
Right.
I'm just saying, like, I just die trying.
I feel like faith. Let's use faith.
Yes.
Right. Whatever you believe in, whatever your focus is, I'm like, you have to have faith, especially being a business owner.
Yeah, for real.
Because it's not a quick turnaround for anything at all. Like, it's a whole process. It's an entire process. So I'm like, faith, right?
Yeah. So was there ever a moment where you're like, you know what, I can't do this? Like, I have to leave my job or something like that? Like, you like working and doing both. You like the whole, because, people talk down on that, right?
So absolutely. Just like people talk down on having a job in nursing school, but are you going to pay for my education? Right? Are you going to pay for my business if I stop working my job?
Right.
So I feel like there's always different approach to how you can do something, and the biggest thing that we can't get back is time, right? So especially building a business in a business where you have to be here at times, like your biggest asset for me is time.
Right.
So like my time management skills are probably one of the tightest things where it has to be. I don't know about like it, but it's where I want to get. I have to do it.
Yeah.
So I don't need to like it now. I just have to do it.
So, all right, the collective space is up. How did you go about marketing this thing? What was your, how did you get people into the space?
I'm still learning how to market, but I do my research on marketing. I mean, social media, like digital platform is there. It's the biggest thing. But for me, before even getting into the space, starting to do the build out of the entire space,
right.
I talked to the town. I was networking. I was going to networking events. I was telling people that, hey, like, I like your mission. This space is opening up. Maybe we could collaborate, kind of thing. The town of Windsor, like the economic developer, I was talking to them back and forth, kind of seeing what the resources there, telling them what's to come. Because ideally, like, your network is key.
Very
right?
true.
Because then you'll be in rooms like, and I've heard it where like, oh, somebody was talking about the collective space here, and I'm like, I have no idea where that is. Right? But that's what you want, because that's how, like, that word of mouth, or it's just like going around and around. But that required me to take extensive time of going to specific networking events or sitting down with somebody and showing them my business plan or going through with this. I mean, but it was worth it. Like,
It doesn't seem like your forte. Just saying.
What do you mean? Like talking to people?
Yeah.
I mean, what do you mean though? I don't know.
You seem like, and I could be completely wrong. Like, you rather let people find out.
In terms of the space.
Yeah, is that out your comfort zone? Or am I completely off?
To go talking to people?
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm just going to talk to people for no reason, that's what, like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
But if I'm going for the business, like, for me, when I go to a networking event, there's a reason why I'm going.
Okay.
Like, there's somebody there why I know I'm going, or they're going to provide me with knowledge that I never had, or to enhance what I already know. So it's for my business. That's like good. It's a given, right? I have no option, especially something like this, to where I don't want to be the face, right? That's why you say it, right?
Yeah,
we know.
Yeah.
However, in order for people to know what I'm doing, I have to speak on it. I have to know how to talk about it. I do have to network. So I did do that, and I still do that.
Who do you have in? Well, if you want to explain, disclose, but like, is there a certain? Because you got offices, right? You got people who have their main office in here. Are you looking for a specific type of person, or
in terms of people who come through the space?
Yeah.
Yeah. So our focus is on health and wellness professionals, right? So besides the title of the person who comes in here, it's people who want to work together, right? It's people who are ready to execute. Because it's like, think about a gym membership.
Yeah,
right. We could all get a gym membership and say we're ready to work out, but are you going to get up every day at 5 a.m., show up, and do it. It's the same thing. You don't have to do anything. They're still going to charge you.
Right.
And ideally, I don't want that. Like, you can get a membership, and I'm still going to charge you once you keep it.
Right.
However, I want you to come in, utilize the space, maximize the space, show up. And if you say that you're going to start this business, like, use it to your advantage. Like that. So I want people who are ready, or people who want to get ready. So they want to say, okay, I want to start with a day pass, start just collaborating, hearing about what you're doing, come to workshops, and then get motivated that way. Because it's like, it's a customer journey.
I love that. I love that. Is what you got new coming to the space?
There's a lot new.
You got new partnerships.
I do. I do. I have exciting stuff, but they're gonna have to wait.
Oh,
You're gonna have to wait.
you might be looking at one of them.
They're gonna have to wait.
This is like your debut. We had to do this.
The debut.
Yeah, for marketing. I'm just gonna say it because
Go ahead.
Look, I'm working with you
right.
to really market people's business and stories. Right? It's not just business. I feel like it needs to be told because you told plenty of stories just of your experience of working, where you work. So I do feel like it's important to get those stories out so you can educate,
No, I agree.
I do feel like everyone's not business savvy. Everyone can't be you, right? Be the nurse and then own a space after working. I think it's remarkable what you're doing. But for those people who feel like they can't, how do you feel they could contribute to your mission that you were saying we need to be educated and learn or we're in trouble?
Being advocates, being teachers. And that's simple as educating. Like, I've met so many different like social workers and therapists, and they have the knowledge, right? When we talk about mental health, when we're talking in entrepreneurship,
right.
Mental health in the Black and Brown community, people don't necessarily know what approach to take when they're feeling anxiety or they're having a manic episode. And you might say these things and they're like, what does that mean? Right? We might have family members that are going through that, but it's like, okay, do we call 211? Do they go to a hold? Like, what do we do? Do we ignore it? That's education, right? So whatever it may look like, it's an online platform, it's doing a workshop inside of the space, but that's telling people, because people don't know what they don't know, right? So it's like we do our part by advocating and just sharing information, which is something the Black and Brown community don't do. And I feel like for two reasons. They don't want to share information because of that competitive side, or they don't think people need that information.
Damn. What's the future like for Kyesha?
There's a lot. This is only the beginning, so.
So, if you had to give someone advice when we close this thing, wrap this thing up, because we busy people. We got other things.
We got things to do.
So, if you had to wrap this up and give somebody advice, what would you tell them?
Advice on what, though?
Trying to start a business, trying to figure out what they want to do, just in life. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do with myself. I hear a lot of people say that.
No, that's true, because it's not a simple thing. I feel like people make it seem like you're supposed to just wake up, or just like now, they expect high schoolers to come out of school and know what they want to do, right? But there's no preparation, there's no self-knowing, there's no understanding to it. So I feel like just know what is your purpose, right? Knowing your purpose and what you want to do, or like how do you feel when you're filling your cup. It's like self-knowing, and it's not a simple task, because I went through that process. Like I knew I wanted to be a nurse. I knew like always I want to serve people. That's just it. That's me. That's how I am. That's what I do. Like I gain happiness, like gratitude from it. But it's like taking the time to learn yourself, and and it's not simple as just saying, what do I like to do, not like to do. It's reading those books. It's going out. It's like understanding when you're uncomfortable and knowing if you can sit in being uncomfortable. It's like setting those boundaries. It's educating yourself. It's understanding like how hard you can go, when you'll give up. But it's like, it's a whole process. It's knowing when to cut people off, like going into a different circle. I feel like it's a process, but you have to be willing to start that process by yourself.
Who is this person?
Who?
He's like,
where?
Listen, you got people knocking at the door for you.
I can't.
Listen, I appreciate you. this is just the first of many episodes. We're gonna do some more, and join the collective space
With the big thumb up.
with the big thumbs up. You're
What?
not,
Can
you're
you
not,
stop?
you're
That's
not doing it.
That's not. He's like, no, we're
You're
not.
not doing that.
I can't. No competition.
Ah,
Love it.
that was hot.
Love